Before we start today's show, I have a few statements to make. Number one, I don't want to I'm not going to anytime soon, and if that happens, you know who did it. Number two, all facts presented in the following show can be independently verified by visiting the resources document in the description of the show. And number three, all parties are considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. I want to make that statement very clear that everything in this show, in every single episode, is alleged, if it's called alleged or referred to as alleged. Anyways, this is going to be a really dark one. Welcome to the Conspiracy Files. Today's episode of the Conspiracy Files was brought to you by Mysterium VPN. Now, as you know, when researching all of these topics and diving deep into the netherworlds of knowledge, I want to be protected. I want to know that my data is secure. I want to not be tracked by any website that I'm visiting. And it may sound cheesy, but I want to hide where I'm at in the world so that I can't be tracked online. And if you value privacy, then Mysterium VPN is definitely a great starting point for you. You see, Mysterium VPN isn't just another traditional VPN. It's a leader in decentralized VPN technologies, powered by over 20,000 individual web users worldwide. This expansive network grants you connection to 135 countries across the globe, a significant leap beyond what traditional VPNs can offer. With this broad selection of countries to connect to, you can say goodbye to those frustrating "this content is not available in your region" messages when you're traveling. Or even better, pay less for flight tickets or hotels by changing your location to avoid price discrimination. But Mysterium VPN isn't just about unlocking content or saving cash online. With military-grade encryption, all your online activities are permanently hidden from prying eyes, ensuring that your data stays private and secure. So we have a custom promo code and link for this collaboration, and if you use my personalized promo code, you guys can receive 15% off on top of already existing amazing deals for all plans. Which means that if you choose the 2-year subscription, you'll get 83% off in total, which makes it the best price in the market for a VPN. So if you want to protect your privacy, if you want to make sure no one's tracking you, that's something that's on my mind all the time, you can make privacy your superpower by grabbing the best deals at mystvpn.net/conspiracy. Once again, that's mistvpn.net/conspiracy. And don't forget to use the code CONSPIRACY for an additional 15% discount on all plans. So yeah, I highly recommend this service. I use Mysterium VPN when I'm researching for these cases. So yeah, it was a great partnership. Anyways, let's get back to the story. All right, so on today's episode, we are tackling a disturbing subject matter from a very powerful family here in America. So recently, I've had people comment on this channel saying I'm one-sided and I'm attacking conservatives and I don't like Republicans. That is not true at all. I don't give a shit what political affiliation you have. The whole point of the show is to expose hypocrisy, corruption, and evil within the political spectrum. Specifically in my Bohemian Grove episode, people thought that I was calling out specifically conservatives because of some rhetoric that was used in there. It was calling out mostly everybody. Now, you got to take this on a case-by-case basis, folks. Bohemian Grove, when I talked about having a photo of Clarence Thomas, who's a conservative, I'm holding it in my hand. When we talk about the famous presidents that have been there, Reagan, Bush, those are the ones that are known, that are in photographs. I like to speak in facts here. Everything to be verified. So I just want everybody to know this is not a political show. This is an awakening show for you to watch and then obsess over later on and research these stories yourselves so you realize I'm not just talking out of my ass. These are real terrible things that are happening. But to equal out the playing field, for everybody who thinks that I'm shit-talking conservatives all the time, let's talk about a family that I really fucking hate, the Clintons. If you remember, we already did an episode about the Boys on the Tracks, which is a murder in Arkansas when Bill Clinton was governor, and there was some really, really shady stuff involving Clinton and the murders there, and obviously the drug running with Barry Seal that was going on there. So Clinton himself is not a clean, not a kind guy. And actually, let me grab something. I love being able to introduce some legit evidence into the show. So right here what I have, this is a handwritten essay from Paula Jones, a woman named Paula Jones who accused Bill Clinton of raping her, and he was never convicted or found guilty of that. This is handwritten. These are her actual words on the paper. Here's a photo of her writing out the story. So let me read this to you guys before we start out with this episode. This is from Paula Jones herself. The story of Bill Clinton's harassment where I was the victim. On May 8, 1991, the Arkansas Industrial Development Commission, AIDC, sponsored the 3rd Annual Governor's Quality Management Conference, which was held at the Excelsior Hotel in Little Rock, Arkansas. Bill Clinton, then governor of Arkansas, delivered his speech at the conference on that day. Also on that day, I worked at the registration desk at the conference. A man approached the registration desk and informed me that he was Trooper Danny Ferguson, Bill Clinton's bodyguard. Ferguson was at that time a law enforcement officer within the ranks of the Arkansas State Police and assigned to the governor's security detail. He was in street clothes and displayed a firearm on his person. He made small talk with me and then left. At approximately 2:30 p.m. on that day, Ferguson reappeared at the registration desk, delivered a piece of paper to me with a 4-digit number written on it, said, "The governor would like to meet with you," in this sweet number. I had never met Clinton and saw him in person for the first time at the conference. I agreed to meet with the governor because I thought it might lead to an enhanced employment opportunity with the state. Trooper Ferguson then escorted me to the floor of the hotel suite whose number had been written on the slip of paper. The door was slightly ajar when I arrived at the suite. I knocked on the door frame and Clinton answered. I entered. Ferguson remained outside. The room was furnished as a business suite, not for an overnight hotel guest. I contained a couch and chairs but no bed. Clinton shook my hand, invited me in, and closed the door. A few minutes of small talk ensued, which included asking me about my job. Clinton told me that Dave Harrington is my good friend. On May 8, 1991, Dave Harrington was director of the AIDC, having been appointed to that post by Governor Clinton. Harrington was my ultimate superior within the AIDC. Clinton then took my hand and pulled me towards him so that our bodies were in close proximity. I removed my hand from his and retreated several feet. However, Clinton approached me again. He said, "I love the way your hair flows down your back, and I love your curves." While saying these things, Clinton put his hand on my leg and started sliding it toward the hem of my culottes. I don't know how to say that, culottes? Clinton also bent down to attempt to kiss me on the neck. I exclaimed, "What are you doing?" and escaped from Clinton's physical proximity by walking away from him. I tried to distract Clinton by chatting with him about his wife. I later took a seat at the end of the sofa nearest the door. Clinton asked me, "Are you married?" I responded that I had a regular boyfriend. Clinton then approached the sofa, and as he sat down, he lowered his trousers and underwear, exposing his erect penis, and asked me to kiss it. I was horrified, and I immediately left the room. And at the very end, it says right here, harassment, all caps, still waiting for my apology. That's a real handwritten essay obtained directly from Paula Jones, who alleges that Clinton harassed her, exposed himself to her. There's plenty of other people that have stories about Clinton, but all of that was just to preface this entire episode by showing Bill Clinton was not a clean guy. The Clinton family is not a clean family, at least in my opinion. This is evidence. What you're about to see is bizarre evidence. And with that, let's just start the show. I want to thank Sabrin Chandler Lewis for helping collect the research and do writing on this episode. She has been a godsend. Be sure to shout her out in the chat, in the comments section for how good of work she's been doing. And I want to say, everything here is alleged. We are not alleging Bill Clinton is murdering people or Hillary Clinton at all. They're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, time and time again, is all I will say. Okay? Throughout the history of the world, there have been many instances of murder by convenience. Those willing to kill to keep themselves safe from the consequences of their actions. It is often referenced in crimes, where a criminal tells someone that they'll meet a dark fate if they talk about what they know. It seems to be an old tradition of those in power, going back to the beginning of the current era, when Emperor Nero was believed to have murdered his wife, stepbrother, and mother to eliminate threats to his power. Then, in the middle of the 1500s, Ivan the Terrible executed his own nobles, members of powerful families, to ensure his continued conquest. We believe this to be a thing of the past. In fact, the people of the United States like to think that we've moved far beyond such horrors, or that there should be no reason to commit them in the first place. We want to believe that those in power are there because they're intelligent, hardworking, good people. We believe that men like Nero, tyrants, and paranoid murderers would never be seen in our halls of Congress or our national seat of power. But what if we're wrong? Beginning in the 1990s, politically connected people began to turn up dead in strange circumstances, many supposedly by unexpected or unfortunate accidents. A rumor began as a soft wind, passing from person to person, that there was one commonality between all these people. They all happened to be related to one of the most powerful families in the country, the Clintons. Time began to pass, and more bodies began to stack atop each other under the most incredible and suspicious of circumstances, often with the claim that they had some kind of damaging information on this important family. Suddenly, these circumstantial deaths began to appear as anything but, and some even suggested that they were more than mere coincidence. People all over the country began to believe that the deaths were orchestrated, and as the death toll rose above 50, yes, 50 murders, or People began to be so sure of it that it was more than just a suggestion, it was a fact. Though it couldn't be proven in court, they said, the Clintons, allegedly, were killing oppositions to their power. Every politician has skeletons in their closet, things they'd rather people didn't know. But are the Clintons' secrets dark enough to kill for? And with this belief, the question must be asked, could we be closer to Nero than we know? And now let's dive into the Clintons. Creepy Clinton. The Clinton political power couple began in Hope, Arkansas. William Jefferson Blythe, or Bill Clinton, was born on August 19, 1946, just 3 months after the death of his father. When William was 4 years old, his mother Virginia married Roger Clinton from the town of Hot Springs. William, called Bill by his friends and family, wouldn't take the family name until he was in high school, remaining Bill Blythe for many years. Bill was an incredible student and a skilled musician. He loved to play the saxophone and thought about someday becoming a professional musical artist. However, this aspiration would soon change. Bill Clinton participated in Boys Nation, a junior government school program, and in this group, Bill acted as a junior senator for his state of Arkansas. He acted as a delegate for this program, and in performance of his role, went to the White House Rose Garden. There, he met then-President John F. Kennedy. After this meeting, Bill's life was changed, and he decided to pursue government work. After receiving a law degree from Yale, he entered politics in his home state. After being defeated in his 1974 campaign for Congress, he married Hillary Rodham, whom he had met during his instruction at Yale. He was soon elected Attorney General in 1976, and in 1977, his wife Hillary founded the Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families. Bill Clinton then became governor of Arkansas in 1978, and during this time, Hillary was appointed the first female chair of the Legal Services Corporation. In 1979, she became the first female partner at Rose Law Firm. Bill Clinton, after serving his first term, ran for a second term as governor but failed to succeed. Then, 4 years later in 1983, he regained office. He would serve 12 non-consecutive years, and during this time, the Clintons would welcome their daughter Chelsea into the world. Bill served as governor until he ran for president in the 1992 race. And during his campaign, Bill announced that with his marriage to Hillary, voters would be getting, quote, 2 presidents for the price of 1, end quote. Bill Clinton would go on to win the election with 370 electoral votes, and he became the 42nd president of the U.S. in 1993. Running for the Democratic Party, Bill Clinton had a unique position when he entered office. Both the White House and Congress were under a Democratic majority, and he had a political edge that many presidents before were not able to achieve. This was lost after only 1 year, though, when the Republican Party won unified control of Congress in 1994. Bill Clinton is noted as having presided over one of the longest peacetime economic expansions in the history of our country. However, Bill Clinton suffered a huge blow to his reputation only 2 years after taking office. It's here where his image becomes tarnished in the public eye, and his misconduct takes center stage. It was discovered that he had been engaging in contact with a White House intern named Monica Lewinsky, abusing his power and having extramarital affairs. He was then impeached by the House of Representatives, becoming the second U.S. president in history to have been charged with severe misconduct. Though he was found not guilty by the Senate, he apologized to the public for his actions and went on to have incredibly popular approval rates for his role as president. But this event was one of the most famous scandals of the age. When people spoke about scandalous politicians, the name Bill Clinton immediately rose to the topic of conversation. The Monica Lewinsky scandal was enormous by itself, but it wasn't the only time that Bill Clinton was accused of misconduct. In fact, it proved that the president was no stranger to lies and deceit, or even harming others. There were 2 other women that began to speak up around the same time that Bill Clinton was accused of having that affair with Monica Lewinsky. Kathleen Willey, a volunteer aide, was once encountered leaving the Oval Office disheveled with a red face, and her lipstick appeared to be coming off. Willey later told Linda Tripp, the woman who had seen her coming from the office, that Bill Clinton had groped her without her consent. Willey had previously testified in 1993 that the president made unsolicited advances on her. Yet, in 1998, the case failed as her claims were found to be, quote, false information, end quote, that conflicted with other sworn statements. Before Kathleen Willey, another woman had accused the president of assault. And interestingly enough, that's Paula Jones. So remember, that's the document that we started this video off with, that handwritten document from Paula Jones. Kind of an interesting little piece that I have. Paula's case was initially dismissed because it lacked legal merit, but after Jones appealed the decision, Bill Clinton paid a settlement of $850,000 to Jones to end the lawsuit and, quote, move on with his life, end quote. The assault suits didn't end there. In 1998, the same year that Willie and Jones brought up their charges, Juanita Broderick stated that the president had raped her in the spring of 1978, and several other witnesses corroborated the story when interviewed by the press. Yet, she filed an affidavit denying any, quote, unwelcome sexual advances, end quote, and testified to that effect in front of a sworn deposition. Broderick, despite having witnesses who corroborated her story, stated that she denied the rape under oath because she didn't want to testify about the ordeal publicly. I can't imagine having to spill out, the details of being raped in front of millions of people in these televised, widely reported hearings where everybody is going to hear about how you were violated. I mean, I can understand a decision like that. It's got to be terrible. Along with these women who were assaulted by the president, there were also several noted mistresses who participated in Bill Clinton's extramarital affairs, reportedly willingly. There were women like Jennifer Flowers, Markie Post, Elizabeth Grayson, Miss Arkansas winner Sally Perdue, and Dolly Kyle Browning, who are among the list of Bill's reported mistresses. It's a lot of mistresses, honestly. These women all claim to have had affairs with Clinton during his time as governor of Arkansas. Obviously, he didn't change his ways when he entered the Oval Office, as rumors continued to surface about mistresses and misconduct. Political activist Patricia Duff, Canadian Parliament member Belinda Stronach, and television presenter Naomi Robinson are all thought to have engaged in affairs with Bill Clinton either during or after his presidency. At least 11 women were thought to have been the subject of Bill Clinton's sexual advances, and at least 3 were the subject of sexual assault at his hands, according to witnesses and testimony. It isn't a new topic for a president to engage in scandalous affairs, with JFK obviously having been accused of an affair with Marilyn Monroe. In an age where women have finally been encouraged to come forward and expose violence through the Me Too movement can destroy more than just the reputation of people in power. In the case of Bill Clinton, however, he was never found guilty of any of his crimes against women. He paid settlements, yet he never served jail time and went on to have high approval rates during his presidency. Not only that, but both he and his wife went on to have good careers in politics, with Hillary Clinton later becoming the U.S. Secretary of State under Barack Obama, and then being the first female presidential candidate to win the popular vote. It almost seemed like the Clinton family was protected by their high-level positions. You see, obviously, you don't get into high-level politics without greasing some palms, that much is certain. You have to make other powerful friends who can keep your interests alive. To make friends in politics, you make deals. You have to accept deals. Some of these deals, perhaps, could even be illegal. Could Bill Clinton, even without his misconduct rap sheet, have had an old hand in dark deeds? His position as governor may offer a clue. So, Bill Clinton served as the Arkansas governor from 79 to 81, and then again from 83 to 92. During this time, something began to take shape at the Mena airfield in western Arkansas. Like I was saying, Barry Seal, a drug smuggler and pilot, set up shop in this remote location in 1981. When he was arrested by the DEA in 1983, he claimed to have made over $50 million by running 1,000 pounds of from Colombia to the US every month. He flipped and turned spy for the DEA after that, gathering information on cartel kingpins, especially the Medellin cartel run by Pablo Escobar. There was a lot of interest from the DEA in this matter, but others took notice as well, such as IRS investigator Bill Duncan. Things continued to become stranger in Mena while Seal performed his role as an informant, and Bill Duncan followed the events with intense focus. He reported the following to leaders of the investigation. Was noticed to have cut a runway deep in the Arkansas woods near the airfield. Automatic weapons fire was reported in the area. People of Latin American appearance were spotted in the area, and people in camouflage were moving through the streams with automatic weapons. On top of that, aircraft drops began to occur frequently, along with twin-engine airplane traffic that never existed in the Mena area before. Bill Duncan, that IRS investigator, and Arkansas State Police investigator Russell Welch started looking into these odd circumstances, suspecting a drug smuggling and money laundering operation happening in small-town Arkansas. However, strangely, the investigation went nowhere. Federal stonewalling followed extremely slow work on behalf of the government, and the case seemed as if it would never take off. Duncan and Welch were persistent, however, and refused to let the flame die out. They kept doing their part, working and requesting information on the process of the investigation. But in answer to their hard work, their careers were destroyed. Perhaps their careers suffered and the investigation was moving so slowly because they were looking too closely into the hidden secrets of their own government. You see, allegations surfaced that some of the smuggling out of Mena was not just illegal drugs. Barry Seal, the smuggler and pilot, had been carrying weapons to Nicaragua as a part of the Iran-Contra affair. You see, during the 1980s, a massive scandal erupted where senior US officials had been caught illegally selling weapons to Iran. They were selling the weapons to gain enough capital to fund the Contras, a US-backed group. The US supported the group as they were fighting the Sandinistas, a left-wing political group that overthrew the US occupation of Nicaragua in the 1930s, and then took power for themselves. It was found that many of these weapons sold in Nicaragua went through the Mina Intermountain Municipal Airport, linking Mina and Barry Seal to not only drug smuggling, but also one of the biggest government scandals in years. The Mina airfield was even alleged to be the place where the CIA trained pilots and troops for the Contra uprising in Nicaragua. And with every attempt to uncover the truth by Duncan and Welch, stone walls were put up, people dragged their feet, and no questions were answered. All this happened during Clinton's performance as governor of the state of Arkansas. He stated it was primarily a matter of federal jurisdiction, yet all of it occurred directly under his nose. It seems to most people, especially to me, highly unlikely that Bill Clinton knew nothing about those events, especially since they were happening in his state. Bill Clinton is the most powerful government official in Arkansas, and he knows nothing about the millions of dollars of drugs, the guerrilla warfare training happening at the small airport, the random men from different countries appearing in the streams holding assault rifles, all of those flights, the CIA presence. He's not told a single thing about that. Not even one of his law enforcement officers comes up and says, "Hey man, we've noticed $50 million worth of is being smuggled in here." He didn't know any of that. Makes you wonder, could Bill Clinton have been complicit in this scandal? Or worse, was he involved? There's another link between his office and the Mina airport. In fact, Dan Lassiter was a friend of the Clintons and a huge supporter of their work. He was under investigation for smuggling around the same time as the events at Mina. Dan would later be imprisoned for that crime, but he wasn't the only one arrested. Roger Clinton, Bill Clinton's brother, was in prison for smuggling as well. Was there a tie here to Barry Seal's operation that was running at the exact same time smuggling into small-town Arkansas? Perhaps. You see, it was around the same time, the same drug type, and it was stated that Bill Clinton did have knowledge of the activities at Mina by the New York Times in an article at the time. The article stated the following, after an interview with author Roger Morris on the relationship between Clinton and Dan Lassiter, the man being investigated for smuggling. Quote, Mr. Lassiter was a bond dealer and racehorse owner who socialized with the Clintons in the early 1980s, taking them to Kentucky Derby in his private plane and contributing to Mr. Clinton's campaigns. Mr. Lassiter's firm made a tidy sum underwriting Arkansas state housing bonds. He was also a drug dealer who paid off the drug debts of Mr. Clinton's addicted half-brother, Roger, and briefly gave him a job. Mr. Lassiter ultimately did time in prison, but Mr. Morris says that state and federal investigations into his activities and his relationship with Mr. Clinton were stunted, end quote. Conveniently so, just as the cases of sexual assault were stunted, discredited, or quietly paid off. If Lassiter was involved with the Mina operation, then he probably knew about Barry Seal's role. Barry Seal's story is one that has been covered in extensive movies and books. The man who did the government's dirty work and smuggled weapons and drugs. It's a crazy story. A poster of the movie made about Barry, called American Made, stars Tom Cruise carrying a cash-filled duffel bag. Across the top, it touts the phrase, "It's not a felony if you're doing it for the good guys." Barry Seal was later murdered by the Colombian cartel in February 1996 outside of a halfway house in Baton Rouge. By double-crossing the Colombian cartel and informing on them, he had sealed his fate. But so had he also sealed his secrets. If Bill Clinton's brother had been involved in the drug and arms smuggling at the Mina airfield, or if his friend was involved in the scandal, had he, the governor of his own state, been keeping it a secret? Or worse, did he make money and participate in the smuggling? Whatever the case, Barry Seal was dead, and any involvement Clinton had in his operation died with him. Perhaps a lucky streak on behalf of the government, their informant and middleman falling dead before he could tell the world what he knew. Or maybe it's more than just a coincidence. It was confirmed that during the presidency of JFK, the CIA had worked with US mafias, specifically the Chicago outfit and the Trafficante family, trying to topple Fidel Castro's regime and assassinate him. In the case of Barry Seal, did history repeat itself? And could it have been the governor of Arkansas standing with the CIA who lit the green light for the Colombians to commit murder? The investigations had gotten as close to Bill as his own brother, Roger. Could it have been too close for comfort for the future president? No matter what, Bill Clinton's name is now associated with Iran-Contra, smuggling, assault and extramarital affairs. He seems to have a great deal of skeletons in his closet, hidden neatly and not spoken about. But what about his wife, the former Secretary of State? Is she cleaner than her husband? Now, this next section is very, very alleged. Now, I've actually thought in the past and talked to researchers that could be purposeful government disinformation to delegitimize other investigations into rings that have happened and really have gone on in the United States, like John David Norman, Francis Sheldon. I could talk all day about all these things, Brother Buds. For the sake of posterity and covering the story as a whole, I am going to talk about. I am not saying that I 100% believe in it. It is one of those things that is incredibly bizarre that I don't understand, like what they were getting at or what they were doing here, or what they were talking about. And for posterity purposes, I am claiming I don't know if I believe in this or not. You are free to make up your own mind. This has to be heavily censored because this is the shit that will get you banned off of YouTube. But it is worth pointing out. Many people in America know about the email scandal around 2016. Hillary Clinton, while serving as Secretary of State, conducted her business through her personal email server instead of a government email account. Many officials and experts condemned this action. The private messaging system software on her computer and a private server violated State Department rules. This was after she had been brought into hearings by the House Select Committee on Benghazi, when 4 Americans had been killed in 2012 while on a diplomatic mission to Libya. When the committee requested a wide range of documents from the State Department, it was discovered that Hillary Clinton had kept a private email account and was using it to perform her duties as Secretary of State. So she basically had a hidden email account that she was using, a personal email. I don't know what the point was of that, but she was doing it. The Inspector General of the State Department, after looking into the matter, said that Hillary never asked permission and wouldn't have gotten it if she had asked. In a 2016 debate, Hillary put forth that she had never sent any classified material using the email server. Yet the Inspector General wrote to Congress that some of the information was indeed classified. This was further proven true by FBI Director James Comey, who, in a statement, reported the following, quote, 110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined by the owning agency to contain classified information at the time they were sent or received. 8 of those chains contained information that was top secret at the time they were sent, 36 chains contained secret information at the time, and 8 contained confidential information, which is the lowest level of classification. Separate from those, about 2,000 additional emails were up-classified to make them confidential. The information in those had not been classified at the time the emails were sent. End quote. He went on to say that while Hillary was overseas, she sent and received emails on the laptop in the territory of U.S. adversaries. He acknowledged that it was indeed possible that because of her private email use, hostile actors may have gained access to that personal email account. But it didn't seem to amount to much. It wasn't tried as criminal misconduct, only carelessness. James Comey, the FBI director, even ideated that Clinton wasn't technologically sophisticated enough to have known the email contents were classified. And through this, even with the risk that enemies of the US had gotten access to classified US information, the Clintons were protected once again. She stated in a debate that she had, quote, made a mistake using the private email server. But what about the emails that she deleted? When the State Department requested the emails from Clinton's personal email, Clinton had already deleted 33,000 emails from the server. This could be innocuous, as everyone deletes old emails from time to time. But there was more. Hillary said she had directed her legal team to determine what remaining emails on her server were work-related and which were not in order to deliver these to the State Department. In total, the amount delivered was 55,000 pages of correspondence. Clinton was asked by her legal team what to do with the remaining 30,000 emails. She told the legal team to delete them. She said they were private, had nothing to do with her work, and she believed they were within her right to delete as they contained private information about her. But the FBI had decided to conduct an investigation. After a year, they recovered more than 17,000 emails that had been deleted or not turned over to the State Department. Many of them were indeed work-related. Hillary Clinton faced heavy scrutiny over this event and was asked repeatedly why she deleted the emails. Could they truly have been innocuous personal information that she wanted to keep private? Or could it have been something darker? Occurred in 2016 and is theorized to link Hillary Clinton and senior politicians from her party with a potential ring that was run through a Washington, D.C. pizzeria. The shocking event was rigorously spread across social media outlets, including over 1 million messages bearing the hashtag across Twitter in November of 2016. was also initially posted to what is asserted to be fake news websites, including Your Newswire, and was subsequently spread through different avenues and websites, including subjectpolitics.com and many more. Trump was Hillary Clinton's opposition during the 2016 campaign, and eventually, obviously, the victor of the election. The origin of this story lies in the release of emails by WikiLeaks from Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta. Among these emails, there were mentions of James Alefantis, the owner of Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria. Alefantis was a strong supporter of the Democratic Party and had contributed to Clinton's unsuccessful presidential campaign. Curiously, users on the 4chan message board began speculating. They delved into James Alefantis' Instagram account and discovered images of modern art adorning the walls of his restaurant. While some of the art was considered not safe for work, it remained within the bounds of artistic expression and legality. Comet Ping Pong was not the only business to be impacted by as the Brooklyn-based restaurant Roberta's was also pulled into the fray. Roberta's received harassing calls, including a particularly violent call in which an anonymous person threatened an employee by telling her she was, quote, going to bleed and be tortured, end quote. Roberta's involvement came about after a YouTube video that has since been removed was posted and demonstrated images from Roberta's social media accounts in a matter that implied complicity in the asserted ring. The Clinton family was also presented through social media to have loved Roberta's. Word of made its way through Reddit, where users had determined that various words and phrases, including words like cheese, hot dog, and pizza, were being utilized as a roundabout reference to pedophilia within Podesta's leaked emails. The online inquisition didn't end with 4chan and Reddit users, nor did it end with protesters engaging the restaurant owner. Elon Musk also voiced his opinion on the matter through his platform X, formerly Twitter. On November 28th of 2023, he posted a meme that insinuated that could be authenticated as a result of the expert who originally debunked the conspiracy getting arrested for the possession of child. I've actually made a TikTok about that. It's pretty weird. A super liberal guy from a news outlet arrested for producing child, and he was a guy that allegedly was debunking left and right. Although this meme was reposted and spread through Facebook, Musk eventually deleted his post later on. The reposts on Facebook were also flagged for false news and misleading information. But after Clinton's severe email misconduct was labeled as carelessness, could these false news flags be nothing more than a way to keep her public image safe? Shortly after, Elon Musk posted to X again with a link to a story covering former ABC News journalist James Gordon Meek, his confession to possession and transportation of child materials, and his 6-year sentencing to federal prison, as reported by the Associated Press. Similarly to the aforementioned tweet, Elon deleted this post as well. Comet Ping Pong owner James Alefantis was interviewed by NPR on November 27, 2016 over the claims. During this interview, he asserted that the theory was nothing more than a, quote, an insanely complicated, made-up, fictional lie-based story, end quote, as well as a, quote, coordinated political attack, end quote. Daniel Ruth, a columnist, then asserted that conspiracy theorists' claims were both, quote, dangerous, end quote, and damaging fake allegations. The theory fell out of the public eye after time had passed, but brought back to life in 2020. It was initially considered a far-right conspiracy theory, but has since been dispersed through TikTok by teenagers who, demographically, aren't recognized as fitting the right-wing conspiracy theorist mold. While Clinton remains at the front and center of the conspiracy, it has since evolved in scope to cover an even larger network of alleged sex trafficking elites that operate on a global scale. Since then, the theory has evolved into even darker tales, such as comes from a 2018 claim about an extreme snuff film taken from Anthony Weiner's stolen laptop with the name. Anthony Weiner, if you didn't know, is a former United States representative who was charged and imprisoned for sexting a 15-year-old girl. Allegedly, the stolen video was recovered from a folder on the computer labeled life insurance, and once the file is opened, true horror ensues. Allegedly, the video was said to be circulating the dark web, showing Hillary Clinton and the US political staffer Huma Abedin committing incredibly disturbing acts against a young girl. It is said that allegedly, in this video, the two women child murder her and drink her blood in a satanic ritual in order to drain her life force and add it to their own. Allegedly, frames from the video circulated in 2018, but Snopes stated they were fake images taken from an April Fool's Day video that had been posted on YouTube. The Anti-Defamation League website has a complete article dedicated to disproving this video, but the dark web is an intricate and disturbing place known for carrying exactly that kind of content. All of this stemmed from emails that had been recovered from the Hillary Clinton campaign, and it may seem far-fetched that the government's elite are holding children hostage in a Washington, D.C. pizza joint, let alone assaulting and murdering them, but the emails seemed odd, as if they were talking about something completely different than a place to get real pizza. Comet Ping Pong was often referenced in the emails, they said, because it was a place where the Democratic Party held fundraisers. All of it revolved around the belief that the Hollywood elite and officials in Washington were sexually abusing children and disguising their discussions about it in email threads. And most of these emails were sent from John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign boss. At this point, it should be asked again, what exactly was in the deleted emails on Hillary Clinton's private server? Perhaps proof of this horrific child abuse ring? Or even proof that the video was real? And something else sounds familiar about the situation, something that came to light in 2019. Jeffrey Epstein, the incredibly wealthy financier, was arrested on sex trafficking charges, with one of his victims claiming that he had sold her and others to the world's elite. Then, only a few months later, Jeffrey dies in one of the most suspicious the world has ever seen. Now, it was confirmed that Epstein did in fact run a ring. His girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, was arrested. She's in jail right now. Yet the names of his associates are subject to wide speculation as to whether or not they actually knew what Epstein was up to. Some of the big names associated with Epstein include Bill Gates, Kevin Spacey, who's an accused Prince Andrew, and of course, Bill and Hillary Clinton. Jeffrey Epstein was clearly a friend of the Clintons, as they took at least 26 flights on the disturbingly named Lolita Express, Epstein's Boeing 727 jet, which was one of the locations where much of his abuse against children was said to have taken place. Bill and Hillary were both named in the Epstein documents, making them stand out in scrutiny yet again. Bill Clinton already had a long history of assault charges and sexual misconduct. Could it be possible that he also harbors tendencies and that his wife joined him in these sick encounters? Jeffrey Epstein could have had extremely damaging information on the political couple, possibly linking them to a real sort of the worldwide connection of Epstein's pedophile ring. It didn't take but a few hours after Epstein was found dead under the strangest of circumstances for former President Trump to tweet claims that Epstein had been killed in order to protect the name of the Clintons. In fact, one of the most popular tweets at that time was #ClintonBodyCount, adding Jeffrey Epstein's name to a long list of others. But another man was killed in relation to the Clintons and Epstein, perhaps to protect the interests of the former president and Secretary of State. Mark Middleton was an aide to the Clinton administration who had signed Jeffrey Epstein into the White House on multiple occasions. In May of 2022, his body was found at Heifer Ranch in Perry, Arkansas. His death was ruled as despite the fact that no weapon was found on the scene. Stranger still, this former advisor was found to have been tied to a tree, shot, and had an electrical cord tied around his neck. So he tied himself to a tree, shot himself with a weapon that's non-existent, and also tied an electrical cord around his neck. And that's not suspicious at all, especially considering the fact Middleton, that guy, had signed Jeffrey Epstein into the White House 7 of the 17 times that he had visited the White House. He also flew on Epstein's jet, just like Bill Clinton himself. Jean-Luc Brunel, Jeffrey Epstein's associate and another accused, was also found dead by in February of 2022. He actually died in a way that was almost exactly similar to the Epstein situation. He himself in prison, and Jean-Luc Brunel was a man who was running his own ring of epic standards, collaborating with Epstein on these crimes. He had so many victims. That dude was evil. But he's another person who could have just known too much about the Clintons. Johanna Sjoberg, one of Epstein's victims, said that Epstein told her once that Bill Clinton, quote, liked them young, end quote, in relation to girls. Virginia Guffrey, another Epstein accuser, stated that Clinton had been to Epstein's Island multiple times, the very place where Epstein was said to have conducted his horrific business. It's already clear that the Clintons committed crimes and got away with every single one of them. And with the link to Jeffrey Epstein, the Clintons are now accused of a disgusting and horrific crime that would destroy their lives if proven true. But there are many more scandals that involve the Clintons, many more rumors, and many more deaths. And now we're going to talk about the first victims. In 1994, a conservative group named Citizens for Honest Government released a tape called The Clinton Chronicles. It featured Larry Nichols, a conservative commentator who had been an Arkansas state employee under Bill Clinton's governorship. This documentary claimed that the Clintons had been killing their opposition for years, silencing those who dared speak out against them or those who had stumbled on their secrets. The Clintons kept getting in trouble, yet miraculously, their troubles kept disappearing. Larry Nichols was previously fired for making 642 calls to the Contras and their allies from his office, the same Contras who were involved with the Mina airfield investigation. As stated previously, you don't get high up in the government without greasing a few palms. Could the Clintons have been slitting throats instead? In the case of two teenagers from Arkansas, it seemed so. We already covered this story in depth on a previous episode, but a short summary. Don Henry and Kevin Ives were two teen boys from Arkansas, Don 16 and Kevin 17. They were both found dead on a set of railroad tracks in Saline County, Arkansas in 1987. It was thought at first that the boys died because of a marijuana-induced sleep, but a grand jury would overturn that finding in 1988 when out-of-state pathologists said that the deaths were indeed homicides. The truth was finally revealed when it was reported that Don had been stabbed in the back and Henry's skull had been crushed. Despite this, the medical examiner Fahmy Malak hadn't ruled the deaths homicides. He was trying as hard as he could to not call these deaths murders. The medical examiner, in fact, had been kept in his office by Clinton for years, despite public outcry to have him removed. Patrick Matryoshka, one of the writers for the Clinton Chronicles, entered in on the topic and stated that the boys were murdered because they witnessed a drug deal that involved top officials in the state. In the Clinton Chronicles, it's explained that the boys were laid on the tracks so that their bodies would be destroyed by a train, and therefore the evidence of their murder would also be destroyed. Linda Ives, the mother of Kevin, stated that the boys came upon a drug drop from an airplane and were murdered for what they had seen. It sounds incredibly similar to Barry Seal's operation at the Mina airfield, wherein he made drug drops across the southern US in the performance of his illegal crimes. The Clinton Chronicles go on to say that Jay Campbell and Kirk Lane, Arkansas sheriff's deputies, were the killers and that their protecting hand was none other than Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton had to have known about the Mina airfield operations. 642 calls were made by one of the state's employees. His brother was arrested in relation to the crimes, and one of his good friends was implicated as well. Not only this, but there was a massive federal investigation in a state that, miraculously for those involved, went nowhere. Bill Clinton may have only been complicit, but perhaps, according to the Clinton Chronicles, he even profited from this drug trafficking. It could be said that this was the first reported case of murder at the hands of the Clintons, but it certainly wouldn't allegedly be the last. In the investigation of the Henry and Ives deaths, many people turned up dead, all of whom apparently had information on the Boys on the Tracks case. Keith Coney was killed when he slammed into the back of a truck on his motorcycle in July of 1988. After being asked to testify before a jury in relation to the killings. Keith McCaskey was stabbed 113 times, killed on November 10, 1988, after being asked to take aerial photos of the crime scene. ArkansasGravestones.com says the following, quote, Keith McCaskey, who was allegedly at the tracks that night, turned over information he had about the boys' murders to Richard Garrett. Believing he had talked to the wrong people, McCaskey had made his own funeral arrangements, told family and friends goodbye, and within days, he was murdered, stabbed 113 times, end quote. In August 1989, Ronald Shane Smith was sentenced to 10 years in prison for the November 10, 1988 murder of McCaskey. McCaskey had earlier expressed fears for his life, like we said, and was telling all of his friends and family that he knew something about the railroad track thing and said people wanted to kill him. Now, Smith, the guy who was convicted of the murder, may have been paid to kill McCaskey, as a prison inmate said he had been approached and offered $4,000 to kill McCaskey himself. Gregory Collins, another male, after being asked to testify in the Boys on the Tracks case, died from 3 gunshot blasts to the face in January 1989. Daniel Booney Bearden disappeared in March 1989 after being asked to appear before the jury because he also had information on what happened. Jeff Rhodes, another young man who had information about the murders, was found in a landfill in April of 1989 after having been shot, mutilated, and burned before he could testify in front of the jury. James Milan, another alleged witness, was found decapitated. However, Fahmy Malak, that medical examiner, ruled his death to be natural causes. That is a no-joke story. Go Google that. James Milan found decapitated, headless, clearly decapitated with some sort of a sharp object, and that crooked medical examiner said he died a natural death. Crazy. Richard Winters was also a suspect in the deaths, then was killed with a shotgun blast to the face during a fake robbery in July of 1989. Apparently, none of these murders and accidents raised any eyebrows locally. Perhaps it was in part due to Fahmy Malak's role as medical examiner. He was obviously a great friend to Governor Clinton's alleged murder spree, But perhaps not everyone was willing to go along with this medical malpractice, because another name was added to this already lengthy list of deaths. In 1990, medical examiner Robert McConaughey's body was discovered in his garage, apparently a victim of carbon monoxide poisoning. He had just accepted a job as assistant to Dr. Fahmy Malak, that crooked medical examiner. But soon afterwards, apparently, it was said that he was heartbroken after having just resigned from his previous post over problems in his office. Yet his tie to Malak and Bill Clinton raises serious questions. And as if these weren't enough, more names are added to the Clinton body count. These had little or no connection to Henry and Ives, but they did have connections to Bill Clinton's alleged other atrocities. In 1992, finance co-chairman of Governor Bill Clinton's presidential campaign, C. Victor Raiser II, his son, and 4 others were killed in a plane crash near Dillingham, Alaska. It was ruled as an accident by the National Transportation Safety Board, but theorists weren't sure. They believed that this finance chairman knew something about Clinton's illicit activities and was about to blow the whistle. But why would he have been murdered? To answer that, we look to the ADFA. Bill Clinton created the ADFA, or Arkansas Development Finance Authority, during his tenure as governor in order to help his community, or so it seemed. However, it was considered to have become something only to help himself. The Clinton Chronicles states the following. Bill Clinton had sold the idea of the ADFA as a vehicle for creating jobs and building churches and schools. In reality, millions of guaranteed taxpayer dollars were being funneled into his own election campaigns, to his inner circle of friends, and to his wife Hillary's law firm. This may explain why ADFA was drafted in such a manner as to keep its decision-making procedures a secret. It continues to say that if a person needed $1 million in a loan, they had to submit an ADFA application, which had to be handled by Rose Law Firm, Hillary Clinton's firm where she had been made a partner. With that application, they had to pay a fee upwards of $50,000. There were 5 law firms in the state that were as or more capable of handling these applications, but Rose Law Firm, the one that Hillary Clinton worked at, got every single one of them. And the documentary goes on to say, no one was actually paying for these bonds. They were fakes, used to launder drug money that came into Mena, Arkansas while Clinton was the governor. On every fraudulent ADFA form, Bill Clinton had to sign off personally. A Congressional Record Report, Volume 140, Number 86, states the following, as quoted by Speaker Burton from Indiana, quote, on December 29, 1988, ADFA deposited $50 million in a bank in the Cayman Islands. Why are you taking money out of the state of Arkansas and putting it in the Cayman Islands? This money was transferred through Simmons First National Bank of Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Why did ADFA deposit $50 million in an offshore bank instead of a bank in some other part of the country or in Arkansas? The interest rates were approximately the same. The State Department's International Narcotics Control Report described the Cayman Islands as a haven for the laundering of drug money. And here's the Arkansas Development Finance Authority sending $50 million down there. Was the $50 million plus interest repaid to the ADFA? Right now, we don't have any documentation as to whether it was repaid. We do not know what happened to it. Did the Arkansas Development Finance Authority make any other offshore deposits? And for what reasons? Public documents show the ADFA was steering millions of dollars in bond underwriting business to Lassiter and his company, who I said before was convicted for dealing cocaine. Why would ADFA give all of its business to Lassiter & Co. while Dan Lassiter, the company's president, was under federal investigation for narcotics trafficking? Dan Lassiter was later pardoned by Bill Clinton just after he got out of prison. And following the lead provided by the Clinton Chronicles and backed up by this congressional report, Bill Clinton allegedly laundered millions in money in a gross abuse of power. Victor Raiser may have discovered this and could have been working towards exposing Clinton for his crimes. But instead of the truth, he ended up dead. And the list doesn't end there. Victor Raiser wasn't the only one who may have known something. What follows are the rest of the names of those who may have fallen at the hands of the Clintons, for the sole reason of keeping their dark machinations a secret. Ian Spiro was a commodities broker who in 1992 allegedly killed his family and then himself. His family was found shot to death, and Spiro was found dead in his SUV on the western edge of the Anza Borrego Desert. It was found that he died by It was labeled a murder, but this wasn't accepted by everyone. In fact, some still completely reject it. As it turns out, Spiro was a, quote, low-level conduit by United States government intelligence agencies and the United Kingdom's MI6, end quote. So he was basically a spy. Some believed that he was killed because of these connections and that he had a link to Clinton's money laundering scheme. It was around that same time, and he did have connection. It was said that Spiro killed his family and himself because of financial troubles that the Spiros were experiencing. Yet some still believe that Ian Spiro was sticking his nose where Bill Clinton didn't want him to. One of the most popular theories is that Spiro was trying to sell Bill Clinton's secrets, and so he was silenced. But Bill Clinton's murder streak is said to have continued with Mary Mahoney, a White House intern who was gunned down execution style at a Georgetown Starbucks. The killer was Carl Derek Cooper, and the event would go on to be called the Starbucks Murders. In July of 1997, she was killed just after she was set to go public with her own story incriminating Bill Clinton. It was thought after Carl Cooper willingly pleaded guilty that he was a fall guy for the real killer. Cooper was a known criminal with a long background of offenses, and it was theorized that he was instructed to commit the murder. He went through a 54-hour interrogation, but after the fact, when legal teams got involved, he recanted his story or took it back. Then, in 1998, James McDougal died alone in solitary confinement of a heart attack while awaiting trial for his role in the Whitewater scandal, which also implicated the Clintons. McDougal's and Clintons were financial partners for the Whitewater Development Project in Arkansas. After this investment plan failed, though, James McDougal created Madison Guaranty, a loan organization. Allegedly, Bill Clinton had attempted to pressure municipal judge David Hale into giving an illegal loan of $300,000 to Susan McDougal, James's wife, and their business partners. It was also alleged that Bill Clinton had used funds from McDougal's Madison Guaranty to pay off his gubernatorial campaign debts. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton's investments were then being looked into by Ken Starr, and conveniently for Bill and Hillary, James, the star witness, died of a heart attack before he could stand trial and talk about what he knew. Bill and Hillary were never charged with anything. Another name tied to Whitewater, this failed residential development area with illegal loans and tons of missing money, was James Wilson. He was found to have apparently by himself in May of 1993. He allegedly had knowledge on Whitewater and the Clintons and their involvement. But like I said, he himself before he could talk about it. In addition, Vince Foster, who was a former White House counselor and colleague of Hillary Clinton at Rose Law Firm, was found dead of a gunshot wound to the head. His death was ruled, though there was no exit wound for the bullet which allegedly killed him. Documents relating to the Whitewater scandal were later found to have been removed from his office after his death or sometime close to it. Stanley Huggins worked on investigating Madison Guaranty, which is that company started by the McDougals and related to the Whitewater scandal. His death was reported to be but his death report, an autopsy, all of that was never released. Did he stumble upon some information that he wasn't meant to see? Criminal information that could put the Clintons in prison? I don't know. John Parnell Walker was a Whitewater investigator for Resolution Trust Corps. He allegedly to his death from his Virginia apartment balcony on August 15, 1993. Whitewater seemed to blow over after these deaths, and it was completely forgotten about by the public. Now think about it. There are so many scandals that happen every single day across America. Scandals, political scandals, people caught in lies. There are fraud scandals, Ponzi schemes that are busted. Tons of things happening all the time. But people don't kill themselves in mass amounts like that. The boys in the tracks specifically, all these victims or all these witnesses themselves, and then this Whitewater thing, all these people themselves. What the is up with that? That's not a common pattern that you see. You just don't see that. But even more scandals continued to surround the Clintons, so allegedly, according to this theory, more people had to die. Ron Brown was a Secretary of Commerce and a former Democratic National Conference chairman. He was reported to have died in a plane crash on April 3, 1996. A pathologist later reported, however, that there was a hole in the top of Brown's skull resembling a gunshot wound. He had been under investigation in relation to another Clinton scandal, the Commerce Department trade mission controversy. In this scandal, seats on United States federal planes that were flying on international trade missions had allegedly been sold to raise funds for campaigns. Ron Brown, the man who was found after the plane crash with the bullet hole in his head, his lawyer was then also murdered in a drive-by shooting the day after his plane crashed. So he was under investigation for his role in another scandal of selling tickets to seats on planes. Ron Brown died in that plane crash and was found with a bullet hole in his head. And literally the very next day, his lawyer, who would also be privy to all of that information, was murdered in a drive-by shooting the day afterwards. I mean, that's just not a f***ing coincidence. And more names continue to pile on, and some without clear connections to the underworld of the Clintons. It's believed that these people got too close to the Clintons' secrets, though, or perhaps had damaging information on their crimes, and they paid the ultimate price. Paul Tully, described by Clinton himself as a, quote, dear friend and trusted advisor, was a Democratic National Committee political director. He was found dead in a hotel room in Little Rock, Arkansas in September 1992. Ed Willey, Clinton fundraiser and the husband of Clinton accuser Kathleen Willey, was found dead in November of 1998, deep in the woods of Virginia. He had suffered a gunshot wound to the head and was ruled. However, that very same day, Kathleen Willey had claimed that Bill Clinton had groped her in the Oval Office. Jerry Parks was the head of security for Bill Clinton's 1992 presidential campaign. He was leaving a Mexican restaurant in Little Rock, Arkansas on September 26th of 1993 when he was shot to death by a man in another car. He suffered 10 gunshot wounds from a 9mm handgun. His son alleged that his father had a secret file on the Clintons, which he was attempting to use to blackmail them. That one is absolutely insane. Jerry Parks, the head of security for Bill Clinton's presidential campaign, he told his own son that he had a blackmail file of confidential, compromising information on the Clintons, and he's shot and killed. James Bunch allegedly owned a black book of influential people who had visited prostitutes in Arkansas and Texas. He was found to have died from a gunshot wound. Kathy Ferguson was the ex-wife of Arkansas State Trooper Danny Ferguson. She was found dead in her living room in May of 1994 of a gunshot wound to the head. Despite having several packed suitcases as if she was leaving, it was ruled a. Her ex-husband, Danny Jones, was the co-defendant with Bill Clinton in the Paula Jones sex case. Kathy Ferguson was a possible corroborating witness to prove Paula Jones's story. Bill Shelton was Kathy Ferguson's new fiancé. He was suspicious about the events of his fiancé's death, and he was also later found dead of a gunshot wound at Kathy's grave. His death was once again ruled. Gandy Baugh was the lawyer of Dan Lassiter, the convicted, then pardoned drug smuggler who was a close friend of Bill Clinton. Gandy Baugh by from a tall building in January of 1994. Florence Martin was an accountant and subcontractor for the CIA. He was related to the Mena, Arkansas drug smuggling case, and he died of 3 gunshot wounds. Did he know more information that he should have known? Who knows? Suzanne Coleman was reported to have had an affair with Bill Clinton during his tenure as Arkansas Attorney General. Suzanne was killed by a gunshot wound to the back of her head. She was pregnant at the time, and her death was ruled. Paula Grober died in a one-car accident. She was a Clinton-employed speech interpreter for the deaf from 1978 until her untimely demise on December 9th, 1992. Danny Casolaro, which is a whole nother story we're going to do on an upcoming episode, was an investigative reporter for the Mena Airport scandal and ADFA. He allegedly, in the middle of his investigation into Bill Clinton's drug smuggling and money laundering schemes. Paul Wiltshire worked with Danny Casolaro on the investigation and was found dead on a toilet on June 22, 1993. He had delivered a report on the investigation 3 weeks before his death. 2 investigators working the same case, one is found and another one is found dead on the toilet. Barbara Wise was a Commerce Department staffer. She worked closely with Ron Brown and John Huang, who worked for Lippo Bank in California and Worthen Bank in Arkansas. Remember, Ron Brown is the guy whose plane crashed and he had the gunshot wound in his head. John Huang had served in Bill Clinton's Commerce Department before he became a chief fundraiser for the Democratic National Committee in 1996. Huang pleaded guilty in 1999 to felony conspiracy charge. He had been found violating campaign finance laws and was sentenced to 1 year of probation. He was also ordered to pay a $10,000 fine and serve 500 hours of community service. Huang was responsible for arranging $156,000 in illegal campaign contributions from Lippo Group employees to the Democratic Party. So Barbara knew Ron Brown, the guy who went down on the plane and died, and John Huang, this guy who was involved in the stealing and embezzlement of money and whatever was going on there. Barbara, it's thought Barbara was killed for her connection to Ron Brown and John Huang. Her cause of death was listed as undetermined. She died on November 29th, 1996, with her bruised body being found locked in her office at the Department of Commerce. Undetermined. Nobody's ever found guilty of that one. Charles Meissner was the Assistant Secretary of Commerce who gave John Huang special security clearance. He died shortly after this all came out in the news in a small plane crash. Dr. Stanley Hurd served on Bill Clinton's advisory council and personally treated Clinton's mother, stepfather, and brother medically. He died with his attorney, Steve Dixon, in a small plane crash. Barry Seal, the drug and arms smuggler, was killed in that hail of gunfire after performing his role in the Mena, Arkansas and Contra scandal. Johnny Lawhorn Jr. found a check made out to Bill Clinton in the trunk of a car left at his repair shop and was then found dead after his car hit a utility pole shortly after. Herschel Friday was a Clinton attorney and fundraiser who died on March 1st, 1994 when his plane exploded midair. Wonder what he knew. John F. Kennedy Jr., the most popular New York Democrat at the time of his death, considered seeking the seat of Senator Daniel Moynihan as he was planning to retire. In the 2000 United States Senate election in New York, he was unable to run, having died in a plane crash on July 16, 1999, and Moynihan's vacant seat was filled by Hillary Clinton. After that plane crash, keep in mind, think of all the plane crashes. Whoever's killing these people seem to have a preferred execution method. They really like plane crashes and they really like shooting people in the head. Victor Thorne allegedly in 2016 after publishing several novels that attacked the character of the Clintons. His books connected the Clintons to the drug trafficking scandals, and he ended up dead during Hillary's presidential campaign. Yet his family and the American Free Press reported he had. Christopher Sine was found dead in his home in Alabama on June 12, 2021. His death was investigated as a but many right-wing theorists believe he was killed to protect the Clintons. As a reporter, he broke the news of a meeting that occurred between Bill Clinton and Attorney General Loretta Lynch while Hillary Clinton was under scrutiny for her email scandal. Kobe Bryant, the beloved basketball player, was killed in a helicopter crash with 8 others in January 2020. Some believe, now this is super fringe, that he was about to expose financial misconduct committed by the Clintons. Though allegedly debunked, many believe he was murdered like many before him. Jovenel Moise, I did not say that right, the Haitian president, was assassinated on July 7, 2021 after his residence was attacked by gunmen. His wife escaped with her life, wounded and hospitalized. Some believe he was killed by the Clintons because of aid provided to Haiti by the Clinton Foundation. They had provided hurricane-proof classroom trailers to Haiti, but were found to have been structurally unsafe and even laced with formaldehyde. And the final victims, allegedly, are several Clinton bodyguards that have been killed. These are their names: Major William S. Barclay Jr., Captain Scott J. Reynolds, Sergeant Brian Hanley, Sergeant Tim Sable, Major General William Robertson, Colonel William Densberger, Colonel Robert Kelly, Gary Rhodes, Steve Willis, Robert Williams, Conway LeBleu, and Todd McKeon. That is so many names. If anybody's list of bodyguards all died like that, you'd be suspicious. And then you just add in everything I just told you. This is some really mind-blowing shit. Over 50 names compiled here are tied to the Clintons in one way or another and died extremely unusual deaths. Linda Tripp, one of the main witnesses in the Monica Lewinsky scandal, said that she also feared for her life and was receiving death threats for her role in the event. From Bill Clinton's cases, his massive alleged money laundering and drug running scheme, his alleged involvement in Whitewater, his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, Hillary Clinton's email misconduct, her alleged involvement in. It's clear that the Clintons have many skeletons in their closet. Perhaps these secrets were damaging enough to kill for. This case remains a maze of controversy and hearsay, but in conspiracy, hearsay can often lead to the truth. Often, it's the resource that leads to its discovery. Many consider the idea that the Clintons had killed all these people completely ridiculous. They believe that no entity could possibly commit so much horror without being found out. Some even tweet hashtag Clinton body count as a joke and consider it nothing but a frightening but funny claim. Others dismiss them outright, seeing these claims as nothing but unfounded rumors and wild speculations meant to discredit the Democratic political party. Many, though, see too many coincidences to ignore the possibility of tyranny on our shores. Since the murder of John F. Kennedy, the public has begun to ask if we can place all of our trust in the government. They ask what lengths the elite will go to so that they can protect their interests and the interests of their powerful friends. They wonder if the people in power are there because they care for their country, or if they only care about being powerful themselves. They further wonder what hidden monstrosities exist that would tear apart the political landscape of our country if they were revealed. The people who died allegedly knew something if the Clintons truly did end their lives. They were poised to destroy the Clintons' reputations and their careers. Were these secret keepers proving the claims of what the public already believed? Or was there something even worse that, according to this theory, the Clintons needed and still need to keep hidden? In asking this question, we allow the Pandora's box of elite secrecy to open, spilling forth darkness from its depths. If these people had lived and their secrets had come to light, would all of America have been swept up in a tide of horror? These whispers of conspiracy have threaded their way through our society for years, casting a shadow of fear over democracy itself. Behind closed doors, did the Clintons allegedly need so desperately to keep secret? For the Clintons, allegedly, truth itself may have become a casualty of power, and the brave souls who dared to try and reveal it have become casualties themselves. As we travel through the darkness that threatens to wash us away, we become aware of the malevolent forces behind our society, willing to go to any lengths to protect their interests. In this landscape of treachery and deceit, the price of truth may be higher than we ever imagined. Wow, guys, what an absolutely crazy story. That just made me want to go. I'm actually going to go right now and deep dive and research all of this because that is insane. That is so many names of so many people. And I implore you to consider this whole thing as a whole. It could be coincidences. It could be just some crazy conspiracy thing. But whether you consider yourself to be a Democrat, whether you consider yourself to be an independent or a Republican, wherever you lie on the political spectrum, you have to take party politics away from this equation and look at this as in all these people dying that are connected to two other people. It has nothing to do with politics. It is just a shitload of people dying that have claimed they have blackmail, that have claimed they have information, that worked on these projects that ended up becoming huge scandals, that were heavily involved in murders that the truth still isn't known about, and they're all dead. And I'll leave you with that. You can make your minds up here, but Bill Clinton and Hillary, please forgive me and do not have me whacked. I apologize, and everything here is alleged. None of this is true. I'm just making it up. I'm a crazy lunatic. Anyways, y'all, thank you for listening to another very long episode of the Conspiracy Files. It's Colin here. I am so glad to have everybody here. Be sure to leave a like and a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Be sure to share this show out if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate you guys so dearly. You guys make my life complete. Thank you for listening. I'll catch you on the next one. Keep that tinfoil hat on and stay suspicious.